What if, right now, as you sit or lie still, nothing around you is truly solid? Not the bed beneath you, not the walls around you, not even your own body. Quantum physics tells us something deeply unsettling at first glance, that reality, as you experience it, is not what it seems. That what feels firm, stable, and certain is actually built on something far more fragile, far more mysterious, and far more beautiful. Because beneath every sensation of touch, beneath every surface you rely on, there is mostly empty space. Vast, silent gaps where you might expect substance. And yet, somehow, everything still holds together. This is the quiet paradox of the universe. And tonight, we're going to gently explore it. If you've ever watched one of our earlier Valoran videos about how time slows down near black holes, you might remember that strange feeling, when something you thought was absolute suddenly becomes flexible. Tonight carries that same feeling, but closer, much closer, right down to the structure of your own existence. Because the mystery isn't out there in distant galaxies. It's here, inside you. Quantum physics reveals that what you call you is not a solid object, but a pattern, a temporary arrangement of energy, constantly shifting, constantly redefining itself. And strangely, understanding this doesn't make life feel meaningless. It makes it lighter, because if reality itself is not rigid, then perhaps the weight you carry isn't as fixed as it feels. As we move through this journey, we'll slowly uncover something deeper. Why nothing is ever truly still. Why particles can exist in more than one place at once. Why the act of observing something can actually shape what it becomes. And eventually, we'll arrive at a quiet realization that the universe is not made of things, but of possibilities. Before we go further, take a moment, settle in, and allow your thoughts to drift just a little. If you enjoy these calm journeys into the deeper layers of reality, consider subscribing to Valoran's Sleepy Space Mysteries, leaving a like, and turning on the bell so you don't miss future explorations. You can also join as a member if you'd like to support the channel more deeply. And if you feel like sharing, tell me where you're listening from tonight. Now, let's begin by gently stepping beyond the illusion of solidity and into the quiet emptiness that holds everything together. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine your hand resting gently on your chest. It feels warm, steady, present. There is a sense of weight, of pressure, of something undeniably real. Your fingers exist. Your body exists. The world around you feels firm, reliable, and grounded. And yet, beneath that familiar sensation lies a truth so quiet and so strange that once you begin to understand it, your entire perception of reality begins to soften. Quantum physics tells us that your hand, the one you can feel so clearly, is almost entirely empty space. Not metaphorically, not philosophically, but physically. If you could somehow zoom in beyond your skin, past the layers of cells, deeper into the molecules, and then into the atoms themselves, you would not find solid building blocks stacked tightly together. Instead, you would find vast distances, empty regions, silence between particles that are themselves incredibly small. To make this easier to imagine, picture a single atom scaled up to the size of a large stadium. At the very center, there would be a tiny nucleus, so small it would resemble a grain of sand resting quietly on the field. And far beyond it, near the outer edges of the stadium, electrons would drift in uncertain patterns. Between them, almost nothing. That emptiness makes up more than 99.9999% of the atom. And since your entire body is made of atoms, that means you, too, are almost entirely empty space. This is the first crack in the illusion, because if you are mostly empty, why do you feel solid? Why does your hand not pass through your chest? Why do you not sink through the bed beneath you or drift through walls like a ghost? The answer is subtle, and once you hear it, it begins to reshape everything. You are not feeling matter when you touch something. You are feeling forces. When your hand presses against your body, the atoms in your skin are not actually making contact with other atoms in the way we might imagine. Instead, the electrons surrounding those atoms begin to interact. They repel each other, gently at first, then more strongly as they come closer. This repulsion creates a kind of invisible cushion, a boundary that cannot easily be crossed. What you interpret as touch is actually resistance, a quiet push between fields of energy. You are not truly contacting anything. You are hovering just above it, separated by distances so small they feel like contact, but in absolute terms they are still there. A gap, a boundary, a space that is never fully closed. And yet, from this interaction, from these invisible forces, the entire sensation of solidity emerges. The bed feels firm. The walls feel real. Your body feels whole. But beneath it all, there is no solid core. Only patterns. Only interactions. Only relationships between particles that never quite meet. And as you begin to sit with this idea, something interesting happens. The world doesn't become less real. It becomes quieter. Because solidity, it turns out, is not a requirement for stability. The universe does not need rigid structures to create form. It builds everything from movement, from probability, from fields that stretch across space and gently influence one another. What you call solid is simply a stable pattern within this deeper, invisible system. A pattern that repeats so consistently that your mind interprets it as something permanent. But it isn't permanent. Even now, within your body, atoms are shifting. Electrons are moving in ways that cannot be precisely predicted. Tiny fluctuations ripple through everything you are, not in a chaotic way, but in a quiet, constant dance that never truly stops. You are not a fixed object. You are a process, and that process is built almost entirely on emptiness. This may sound unsettling at first, but stay with it, because there is something unexpectedly comforting hidden inside this realization. If your body is not as solid as it feels, if the world itself is not as rigid as it appears, then perhaps the weight you carry, the tension you feel, the heaviness of your thoughts is not as fixed either. Just like the atoms that make you, everything is more flexible than it seems. And as we continue, we'll begin to see that this emptiness is not a flaw in reality. It is the very thing that allows it to exist at all. Now gently bring your awareness back to your body, to the quiet sensation of contact. The surface beneath you, the fabric against your skin, the subtle pressure where your weight rests. It all feels so immediate, so direct, so undeniably real. Touch is perhaps the most convincing of all your senses. It reassures you that you are here, grounded, connected to something solid. And yet, as we follow this path deeper into quantum physics, that certainty begins to soften in a very unexpected way. Because the truth is, you have never actually touched anything. Not once. What you feel as contact is not atoms meeting atoms, not surfaces merging or pressing together in the way your intuition suggests. Instead, it is something far more delicate and strangely more elegant. It is the result of invisible forces interacting across incredibly small distances, never quite allowing true contact to occur. Every object around you is made of atoms, and each atom is surrounded by a cloud of electrons. These electrons carry a negative charge, and when two objects come close to one another, the electrons in one object begin to sense the electrons in the other. As they approach, they repel, not violently but firmly, consistently, in a way that prevents them from occupying the same space. This repulsion grows stronger the closer the atoms get, and at a certain point it becomes strong enough to stop them from moving any closer at all. That moment, that invisible boundary, is what you experience as touch. Your hand does not meet the surface beneath it. It hovers just above it, separated by a tiny gap, a distance so small your senses cannot detect it. But in absolute terms, it is still there. A space maintained by the quiet but powerful push of electromagnetic forces. What your brain interprets as pressure is simply resistance. Your skin deforms slightly under this force, activating receptors that send signals to your mind. Those signals are translated into sensation, warmth, texture, solidity. But beneath that translation, no atoms are truly colliding. No surfaces are actually merging. There is only interaction, only influence. It's like trying to push two magnets together with the same poles facing. They resist. They never quite meet. And yet, the resistance feels real. It feels like contact, even though it is something else entirely. And this happens constantly. Every time you press a key, every time you lean against a wall, every time you take a step across the ground, you are not touching the world. You are gliding just above it, supported by fields of force that never allow complete contact. Even something as sharp or forceful as a needle-piercing skin does not break this rule. At that level, what happens is not atoms merging, but structures being forced apart. The arrangement of molecules changes, bonds are disrupted, and your body registers this as pain. But still, at the deepest level, the atomic cores remain separate, held apart by the same invisible principles. There is always a boundary, always a space. This realization begins to reshape something fundamental, because it suggests that the world is not built on direct contact, but on interaction at a distance. Everything you experience, every sensation, every moment of physical presence, is mediated by forces you cannot see. Reality is not made of objects pressing against each other. It is made of fields responding to fields. And yet, despite this separation, everything feels cohesive, stable, reliable. The chair supports you. The floor holds you. Your body remains intact. This is because these interactions are incredibly consistent. The laws governing them do not change. The patterns repeat with such precision that your mind interprets them as solidity. But now you know it is not solidity. It is agreement. An agreement between particles enforced by the rules of quantum physics that defines how close things can come, how they respond, how they resist. And within that agreement, the entire structure of the physical world emerges. There is something quietly beautiful about this. The idea that nothing truly touches, and yet everything connects. That separation does not prevent interaction, but actually makes it possible. Without these invisible boundaries, atoms would collapse into one another. There would be no structure, no form, no distinction between one thing and another. Distance, even at the smallest scale, is what allows existence to take shape. So as you rest there now, feeling the world around you, you can begin to sense it differently. Not as a collection of solid objects pressing against you, but as a network of gentle forces, holding everything in balance, supporting you without ever quite touching you. A quiet conversation between particles, a continuous exchange of influence. And as we move forward, we'll begin to explore something even deeper, because not only do things not truly touch, they are never truly still either. Now, let your attention soften even further as we move into another quiet shift in understanding. A shift that begins with something that feels obvious, something you've trusted your entire life. The idea that stillness exists, that when you lie down, when you close your eyes, when the world around you becomes quiet, things stop moving. That there are moments of true rest, true stillness, where everything simply pauses. But quantum physics gently suggests something very different. Tells us that nothing has ever truly been still. Not your body, not the air around you, not even the deepest, coldest regions of space. Motion is not something that begins and ends. It is something that never disappears. It is woven into the very fabric of existence. Even now, as you rest, your body feels calm, unmoving. Your hands are still. Your breathing is slow. And yet beneath that peaceful surface, an entire universe of motion continues without pause. The atoms in your skin vibrate. The molecules within your cells twist, stretch, and rotate. Tiny electrical signals move through your nervous system in quiet rhythms. Your body, even in rest, is a symphony of activity. But this is only the beginning, because even if we remove all of that, even if we imagine a place with no warmth, no external energy, no movement that we can easily detect, emotion still remains. Physicists call this idea zero-point energy. It describes the lowest possible energy state that a system can have. And what's remarkable is this: even at that lowest point, motion does not disappear. Particles still fluctuate. They still shift in subtle, unavoidable ways. This happens because of a fundamental rule of quantum physics known as the uncertainty principle. It tells us that we cannot know both the exact position and the exact motion of a particle at the same time. The more precisely one is defined, the less precise the other becomes. And because of this, a particle can never be perfectly still. If it were completely still, its motion would be exactly zero, perfectly known. And that is something the universe does not allow. So instead, particles always retain a small, irreducible movement, a quiet trembling that cannot be removed. This means that absolute stillness does not exist. What you experience as stillness is something else entirely. It is balance, a state where motion continues, but in a way that feels calm, stable, and predictable, like the surface of a lake on a quiet night. It may appear perfectly smooth, but beneath it, gentle movements continue. Tiny ripples, subtle currents, motion that never truly stops. And this idea extends far beyond your body. Consider something as simple as a book resting on a table. It appears completely still, unchanging, but inside that book, atoms vibrate, molecules shift, electrons move in cloud-like patterns. Even the particles within the nucleus are in constant motion, influenced by forces that never rest. The book is not static. It is alive with motion, hidden beneath the illusion of stillness. And the same is true for everything around you. The air in the room, the walls, the ground beneath your home, the planet itself, spinning through space while orbiting a star that is moving through a galaxy. Motion layered upon motion, all happening at once, all woven together into something that feels stable only because it is so consistent. This realization begins to gently reshape another assumption. That rest means stopping. That calm means absence of movement. But in reality, rest is not the absence of motion. It is harmony within motion. It is when countless movements align in a way that feels peaceful instead of chaotic. Your body right now is not still. It is balanced. And there is something deeply reassuring about that, because it means that even in moments when you feel stuck, when your thoughts seem frozen, when everything feels paused or heavy, beneath that feeling, movement continues. Quietly, steadily, persistently. Nothing is ever truly stuck. Everything is always in the process of changing, even if that change is too subtle to notice. This also connects back to the emptiness we explored earlier. That vast space within atoms is not empty in the way we imagine. It is not silent or inactive. It is filled with subtle motion, fluctuations, tiny shifts in energy that never fully settle. Emptiness is not stillness. It is activity at a level so gentle, it feels like nothing at all. And as you rest here, you can begin to sense this differently. The calm you feel is not because everything has stopped. It is because everything has found a rhythm, a quiet, steady flow that does not demand your attention. You are part of that flow, not separate from it. You are not a still object in a moving universe. You are a moving pattern within a moving universe. And as we continue, we'll begin to explore something even more surprising. Because not only is everything always moving, but even empty space itself is far from empty. Now, let your attention settle even deeper beyond the idea of touch, beyond the illusion of solidity, into something even more subtle. Because not only are you not truly solid, not only are you never truly touching anything, but there is something else, something even quieter and more surprising. Nothing is ever completely still. It may feel like you are resting. Your body is calm. Your breath is slow. The room around you is quiet. Everything appears motionless, as if the world has paused just for a moment. But beneath that stillness, hidden far below your senses, there is constant movement. Endless, gentle motion that never stops, not even for a single instant. Quantum physics tells us that stillness, in the way we imagine it, does not actually exist. Even in the coldest possible place in the universe, where all heat has been removed, where classical motion should completely disappear, particles continue to move. They cannot stop. It is not a matter of energy or environment. It is built into the very rules of reality. This is known as zero-point motion. At the lowest possible energy state, particles still carry a subtle, irreducible vibration. A quiet trembling that cannot be removed, no matter how much you try to calm it. Not because something is disturbing them, but because nature itself does not allow perfect stillness. There is always uncertainty, and that uncertainty means there is always motion. Imagine trying to hold a tiny object perfectly still, knowing exactly where it is and exactly how fast it is moving. Quantum physics tells us that this is impossible. The more precisely you try to fix its position, the less certain its motion becomes. And the more precisely you try to define its motion, the more its position begins to blur. So particles never settle into complete rest. They hover, they fluctuate, they gently shift within a range of possibilities. And this is not something distant or abstract. This is happening inside you. Right now, within your body, trillions of atoms are vibrating. Not violently, not chaotically, but softly, continuously, like a quiet hum beneath everything you are. The molecules in your cells are stretching and bending. The electrons within those atoms are moving in patterns that can never fully settle. Even when you feel completely still, you are filled with motion, a slow, constant rhythm that has been present since the beginning of the universe. And if you expand this awareness outward, beyond your body, into the space around you, the same truth remains. The air is moving. The particles within it are drifting, colliding, exchanging energy. Even the objects that seem perfectly still, like walls or furniture, are alive with microscopic motion. Everything is in motion, not in a chaotic way, but in a deeply structured, almost musical way. A quiet vibration that sustains existence itself. Because without this motion, nothing could exist as it does now. Atoms would collapse. Electrons would fall into nuclei. The delicate balance that allows matter to form, to hold shape, to interact would disappear. The universe would not become more stable. It would become impossible. So motion is not a disturbance. It is the foundation, and this begins to shift how we understand rest. Rest is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of balance. A state where motion continues, but in a way that feels calm, steady, and harmonious, like the surface of a quiet lake, where small ripples move gently across the water without disrupting its overall stillness. That is what you are, not a frozen object, but a balanced pattern of motion. A system where countless tiny movements come together to create something that feels stable, even though it is never truly at rest. And perhaps there is something comforting in that, because when life feels stuck, when your thoughts feel heavy, when it seems like nothing is changing, this deeper truth remains. Beneath everything, there is always movement, always change, always a quiet unfolding that continues, even when you cannot see it. You are not static. You are not frozen in place. You are part of a continuous flow that has never stopped and never will. And as we continue, we'll move even further into this strange and beautiful reality. Because if nothing is truly still, then perhaps reality itself is not as fixed as it appears either. Now, let your awareness drift a little further, beyond your body, beyond the objects around you, into the space between things, the quiet gaps, the places that seem like nothing at all. When you imagine empty space, you might picture a kind of perfect stillness, a void, a complete absence of everything. No particles, no motion, no structure, just silence. But quantum physics gently reveals something very different. Empty space is not empty. In fact, it is one of the most active, dynamic parts of reality. Even in a perfect vacuum, where all matter has been removed, where there are no atoms, no molecules, no visible energy, something remains. Not something solid, not something you could touch, but something far more subtle. Fields. Invisible, continuous fields that stretch across all of space, present everywhere, even in what we call nothing. These fields are never completely still. They fluctuate, they ripple, they quietly shift in ways that cannot be fully turned off. And from these fluctuations, something extraordinary happens. Tiny particles appear and then disappear, not permanently, not in a way we can directly observe, but briefly, fleetingly, like sparks in the dark. They emerge from the underlying energy of space itself, exist for a moment, and then fade back into it. This is known as vacuum fluctuation. It means that even in the emptiest possible place, there is still activity. A gentle, constant bubbling of existence at the smallest scales. Imagine a calm, dark ocean at night. From above, it looks completely still, almost like nothing is there. But beneath the surface, currents move, tiny waves form, subtle motions continue. Space is like that. It appears empty, but beneath that appearance, there is a quiet, restless energy that never fully settles. And this activity is not just theoretical. It has measurable effects. When two extremely smooth metal surfaces are placed very close together in a vacuum, they are gently pulled toward each other. Not because of gravity, not because of magnetism, but because the activity of these quantum fields is slightly different between the plates than outside them. The imbalance creates a tiny force, enough to move objects under the right conditions. Even nothing can exert influence, and this begins to change how we understand emptiness. Because emptiness is not the absence of everything. It is the presence of something so subtle, so continuous, that it becomes invisible to us. The space between atoms, the gaps within your body, the vast stretches between stars, all of it is filled with these underlying fields, always present, always active, always shaping the behavior of the particles that emerge from them. This connects back to something we felt earlier, that sense of emptiness within atoms, that vast open space that makes up almost all of what you are. It is not a dead void. It is not a hollow gap. It is alive with quiet activity, with fluctuations that help define how particles behave, how forces arise, how reality takes shape. So when you think of yourself as mostly empty space, it does not mean you are made of nothing. It means you are made of something incredibly subtle, something dynamic, something that is never truly at rest. And there is something deeply calming about this idea, because it means that even in the quietest moments, even in the spaces where you feel like nothing is happening, something is always unfolding beneath the surface. A gentle, continuous process that does not require your attention, does not demand your effort. It simply exists, and you are part of it. The space within you, the space around you, the space between everything, all of it shares the same quiet activity, a kind of universal background rhythm that connects everything without needing to be seen. So the next time you feel surrounded by emptiness, by silence, by stillness, you can remember this. There is no true emptiness, only layers of activity so gentle, so subtle, that they feel like nothing at all. And as we continue, we'll begin to bring all of these ideas together. Because if space is not empty, if nothing is truly still, if nothing truly touches, then what we call reality begins to shift into something even more unexpected. Now, let everything we've explored begin to gently come together. You've seen that you are mostly empty space, that you never truly touch anything, that nothing is ever completely still, and that even empty space itself is quietly active, filled with subtle fluctuations. Each of these ideas on its own feels unusual, but together they begin to point towards something deeper, something that quietly reshapes the very foundation of what we call reality. Because if nothing is solid, if nothing truly connects through direct contact, if everything is always moving, and if even emptiness is alive with activity, then what exactly is reality made of? The answer, according to quantum physics, is surprisingly simple. Reality is not made of things. It is made of interactions. What you experience as objects, your body, the room around you, the world itself, are not solid pieces of matter in the way we once imagined. They are stable patterns of interaction, systems where forces, fields, and probabilities come together in a consistent way, creating the illusion of something fixed and permanent. But beneath that illusion, there are no rigid building blocks, only relationships, only influences, only continuous exchanges between particles and fields that never truly settle into static form. Think about your hand again. Earlier, we explored how it never actually touches anything. What you feel is the interaction between electron fields. Now take that idea one step further. Your hand itself is not a fixed object either. It is a collection of atoms, each made of particles that are not solid points, but excitations of underlying fields. Those fields extend across space. They are always present, and what you perceive as a particle is simply a localized ripple within those fields. So your hand is not a thing. It is a pattern of ripples, a temporary configuration of energy that appears stable because the interactions within it are consistent. And the same is true for everything else. The chair beneath you, the air around you, even the earth itself, all of it is built from these patterns. Not static objects, but dynamic relationships that hold together just long enough to create the experience of form. This is why reality feels solid. Not because it is made of solid components, but because the interactions are reliable. They repeat in predictable ways. They follow rules that do not change. And your mind, designed to navigate the world efficiently, interprets that consistency as permanence. But permanence is not what is really there. What is really there is stability within change. And this begins to gently dissolve another assumption. The idea that the world is made of separate, independent things. Because if everything is defined by interaction, then nothing truly exists in isolation. Every particle, every field, every structure is constantly influenced by everything around it. Nothing stands alone. Everything is connected through these invisible relationships. Even you, your body is not separate from the environment around you. It is continuously exchanging energy, particles, and information. The air you breathe becomes part of you. The heat you release affects the space around you. The light that touches your skin carries energy from distant sources, interacting with the atoms in your body. You are not a closed system. You are an ongoing interaction, a process that exists only because of its connection to everything else. And there is something deeply calming about this realization, because it means that the boundaries you feel, the edges that seem to separate you from the world, are not as rigid as they appear. They are part of the same system, the same network of interactions that gives rise to everything. You are not disconnected. You are embedded. And if reality itself is built on interaction rather than rigid structure, then it is not fixed. It is not frozen. It is constantly being shaped moment by moment by the relationships between its parts. This brings us back to one of the quiet questions we introduced at the beginning. What is truly holding everything together? Not solidity, not contact, but patterns of interaction that are stable enough to feel real. And within those patterns, everything you experience takes shape. Your body, your thoughts, your sense of presence. All of it emerges from this continuous, dynamic process. And as you rest here now, you can begin to feel that differently. Not as a solid object sitting in a fixed world, but as part of a flowing system. A quiet network of interactions that supports you without needing rigidity, without needing permanence. A reality that is softer, more flexible, more open than it first appears. And as we move into the next part of this journey, we'll begin to explore something even more surprising. Because if reality is built on interactions and possibilities, then under the right conditions, it can behave in ways that seem almost impossible. particles can exist in more than one place at once. And what we observe may not just reveal reality, but help shape it. If you're still listening, gently let me know by commenting 1, and we'll continue deeper into the strange, fluid nature of reality. Now, as we gently move forward, everything we've uncovered begins to open into something even more unexpected. We've seen that reality is not made of solid things, but of interactions. That nothing truly touches, nothing is ever still, and even empty space is quietly alive. And yet, even with all of that, there is a deeper layer still waiting beneath it. A layer where the very idea of being in one place begins to lose its meaning. Because in quantum physics, a particle does not have to choose a single position. It can exist in multiple places at once. At first, this may sound impossible. In your everyday experience, things are always somewhere specific. A book rests on a table. A cup sits beside you. Your body occupies a clear position in space. Everything seems definite, stable, and well-defined. But this certainty belongs to the world of large things, the world your senses are designed to navigate. At the quantum level, that certainty fades. Particles like electrons do not behave like tiny solid objects moving along fixed paths. Instead, they exist as something more fluid, a spread of possibilities, a range of locations where they might be found, all existing at the same time until something forces them to settle. This state is known as superposition. It means that before a particle is observed or measured, it does not occupy just one position. It exists in many possible positions simultaneously, not because it is moving quickly between them, but because it genuinely has not yet chosen a single one. It is not here or there. It is both. A helpful way to imagine this is to think of a soft, blurry cloud rather than a sharp point. Within that cloud, there are regions where the particle is more likely to appear and regions where it is less likely. But until something interacts with it, it does not resolve into a single, definite location. It remains spread out. This is not just a theoretical idea. It has been demonstrated again and again through experiments. One of the most famous involves sending tiny particles toward a barrier with 2 narrow openings. When these particles are not observed, they behave like waves, passing through both openings at once and creating patterns that can only be explained if they existed in multiple paths simultaneously. But the moment you try to observe which path they take, something changes. The pattern disappears. The particle behaves as if it has chosen a single path, as if the act of observation itself has forced it to decide. This is where the mystery deepens, because it suggests that reality, at its most fundamental level, is not fully defined until it is interacted with. That possibilities exist first, and outcomes emerge later. That what something is depends, in part, on how it is observed. And this connects back to something we've been quietly building toward. Reality is not fixed. It is fluid. It allows for multiple possibilities to exist at once, holding them gently until something brings them into focus. Now, it's important to understand that this does not mean large objects like you or me exist in multiple places at once in any noticeable way. The world we experience is shaped by something called decoherence, where constant interactions with the environment force things into definite states very quickly. That's why your body feels stable, why objects stay where they are, why reality appears consistent. But beneath that stability, the underlying rules remain. At the deepest level, everything is built on this principle of possibility. And there is something quietly comforting in that, because it means that the universe does not rush to define everything immediately. It allows space for uncertainty, space for multiple outcomes to exist, even if only briefly before settling into a single path. It does not demand instant certainty. It holds possibilities open, and if you bring that idea inward to your own experience, it begins to take on a softer meaning. You are not a rigid, fixed entity locked into a single, unchanging state. At your deepest level, you are built from the same principles. Patterns of possibility, constantly interacting, constantly evolving. You are not just what you are in this moment. You are also what you could become. A range of possibilities, gently narrowing and reshaping as you move through time. And just like those particles, you are not forced into definition all at once. You unfold, gradually, naturally, through interaction with the world around you. So as you rest here, you can allow that idea to settle. That beneath the surface of certainty, there is flexibility. Beneath the appearance of fixed reality, there is openness. And as we continue, we'll move even deeper into this mystery. Because if particles can exist in multiple states at once, then what happens when we observe them becomes even more important than we might expect. Now, let that idea gently settle, that a particle can exist in multiple places at once. Not fixed, not decided, but spread across possibilities. And from that quiet realization, another question begins to emerge, almost naturally, like a ripple following another. If a particle exists in many possible states, what causes it to choose one? What turns possibility into reality? Quantum physics offers an answer that feels both subtle and deeply surprising. Observation, but not observation in the way we usually think of it. Not simply looking with your eyes, not awareness in the human sense, but interaction. The moment a quantum system interacts with something else, when information about it becomes defined, something shifts. The range of possibilities begins to narrow. The soft cloud of potential collapses into a single outcome. A particle that could be in many places appears in one. A system that held multiple states settles into a definite form. This process is often called the collapse of the wave function. But you don't need to think of it as something technical. You can think of it as a quiet transition, a moment where the universe moves from maybe into this. Before interaction, the particle is not committed. It exists in a kind of openness, holding multiple outcomes at once. After interaction, that openness resolves into a single experience. And what's remarkable is this: the outcome is not fully defined until that interaction happens. This has been observed in experiments again and again. When particles are left undisturbed, they behave like waves, spreading across multiple possibilities. But the moment a measurement is made, the moment the system is forced to reveal information, it behaves like a particle again, choosing a specific position or state. It is as if reality waits, not indefinitely, not consciously, but structurally. It allows possibilities to exist until something requires a decision. And this connects deeply with what we explored earlier, that reality is not made of fixed things, but of interactions. Now we begin to see that interactions do more than just connect things. They define them. They bring them into form. Without interaction, there is no single definite state, only potential. This idea can feel a little unsettling at first. It seems to blur the line between what exists and what might exist. But there is also something quietly reassuring within it, because it suggests that reality is not rigid or predetermined in every detail. It unfolds, gradually, through relationships. Now, it's important to understand that this does not mean your thoughts alone can change physical reality in a direct or magical way. The interactions that cause this collapse are physical processes, exchanges of energy and information. They happen constantly, automatically, everywhere. The air around you interacts with your body. Light interacts with your eyes. Particles interact with one another in ways that continuously define the world we experience. So reality feels stable because these interactions are happening all the time, everywhere, reinforcing consistent outcomes. But beneath that stability, the openness remains. And this leads to a quiet, almost philosophical reflection. If reality at its deepest level is not fully defined until interaction, then existence is not just something that is, it is something that becomes, moment by moment, event by event, and you are part of that process. You are not separate from it. Every breath you take, every movement you make, every moment of awareness is an interaction, a point where possibilities narrow into experience, where the undefined becomes defined. You are not just observing reality, you are participating in its unfolding. And this doesn't make reality fragile. It makes it alive, responsive, connected. It means that the universe is not a static stage where everything is already set. It is more like a flowing story where each interaction gently shapes what comes next, not in a chaotic way, but in a structured, lawful unfolding that allows for both stability and change. So as you rest here now, you can begin to feel that softness, that openness beneath the surface of things, the sense that reality is not locked into a single rigid form, but is continuously forming, continuously resolving from a field of possibilities into the experience you are having right now. And as we continue, we'll move even deeper into this idea, because if particles only take definite form when observed, then what you are at your most fundamental level may not be as fixed as it seems. You are not just a solid body. You are something far more fluid, a cloud of possibilities gently taking shape. Now, let that idea settle gently into your awareness, that reality does not fully take shape until interaction, that possibility exists first and certainty comes later. And as that understanding deepens, it begins to turn inward, towards something more personal, something quieter, but far more profound. Because if particles exist as clouds of possibility, then what does that mean for you? At first glance, it may seem obvious. You feel solid, defined. Your body has a clear shape, a clear boundary. You can move your hand, feel your breath, sense your presence in space. Everything about your experience suggests that you are a fixed, well-defined object. But as we move beneath that surface, into the level where quantum physics describes reality most accurately, that certainty begins to soften. At your most fundamental level, you are not a solid object. You are a cloud of probabilities. This is not a metaphor. It is the most precise way physics describes the building blocks of your body. The particles that make up everything you are do not exist as tiny, solid points with exact positions. Instead, they are described by something called a wave function, which represents all the possible places those particles could be found. So when we say an electron is somewhere, what we really mean is that there is a range of locations where it is likely to appear, each with a certain probability. Before interaction, before measurement, it does not have a single, definite position. It exists as a spread of possibilities. And this applies to the particles that make up you. Right now, within your body, there are countless electrons, protons, and other particles, each described not as fixed points, but as distributions. Soft, blurred regions of likelihood, areas where they might be found, rather than precise locations where they must be. And yet, you feel solid. You feel stable. You feel like a single, continuous being. This is because these probabilities are not random or chaotic. They are structured, guided by precise laws that shape how these clouds overlap, interact, and stabilize. The result is something that appears consistent, something that holds together, something your mind can interpret as a single, unified form. But beneath that form, the uncertainty remains. You are not a rigid structure. You are a dynamic pattern of probabilities that continuously resolves into the shape you experience. Even the atoms in your body do not have sharply defined edges. If you could see them at the quantum level, they would not look like tiny spheres, but like soft, glowing clouds. Regions where particles are more likely to be found, fading gradually into areas where they are less likely. Your entire body is built from these overlapping clouds, a layered, shifting structure of probabilities that somehow creates the feeling of solidity, of identity, of being here. And this leads to a very quiet but powerful shift in perspective. Because if you are made of probabilities, then you are not fixed in the way you might think. You are not a static object locked into a single, unchanging state. You are something that is constantly being defined moment by moment through interaction. Your body stabilizes because of the countless interactions happening within and around it. The environment, the air, the light, the energy exchanges, all of these continuously shape the probabilities into the form you recognize as yourself. But at the deepest level, the openness remains. The flexibility remains. You are not a rigid thing. You are a process. And there is something deeply calming about that. Because if you are not fixed, then neither are the things you feel about yourself. The heaviness, the tension, the thoughts that seem permanent, they are not anchored in something unchanging. They are part of the same dynamic system, patterns that arise, stabilize for a time, and then shift, just like the particles that make you up. Nothing in you is completely frozen. Everything is part of an ongoing unfolding. And this does not make you less real. It makes you more deeply connected to how reality actually works. Because the same principles that govern the smallest particles are the ones that give rise to everything you experience. The stability of your body, the continuity of your thoughts, the sense of identity you carry, all of it emerges from this interplay of probabilities resolving into patterns. You are not separate from the rules of the universe. You are an expression of them. And as you rest here, you can begin to feel that softness, that openness beneath the surface of your own existence, not as something uncertain in a troubling way, but as something flexible, alive, and continuously unfolding. You are not a fixed point in space. You are a field of possibilities, gently taking shape. And as we continue, we'll move even deeper into this unfolding. Because if you are a cloud of probabilities, then the particles within you are doing something even stranger. They are constantly appearing, disappearing, and shifting in ways that challenge everything we think we understand about existence. Now let that feeling continue, that you are not a fixed object, but a pattern of probabilities gently holding its shape. And from that place, we move into something even more subtle, something that almost feels impossible when you first hear it. Because if you are already a cloud of possibilities, then what are those possibilities actually doing? Quantum physics offers an answer that is both strange and quietly beautiful. At the deepest level, the particles that make up reality are not permanent things. They are events. They appear and they disappear. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way you can see, but constantly, softly, like flickers in the background of existence. The idea that a particle is a tiny solid object, always present, always located somewhere, is no longer how physics understands reality. Instead, particles are seen as excitations of underlying fields. That means they are more like ripples in a vast ocean than individual objects. They arise from the field, exist for a moment in a defined way, and then return to a more spread out, undefined state. So when we say an electron exists, what we really mean is that there is a localized ripple in the electron field, a temporary concentration of energy that behaves in predictable ways, but is not permanently fixed. It does not sit still. It does not remain sharply defined. It shifts, it fades, it reappears. And this is happening constantly, even within your own body. Right now, the electrons in your atoms are not following neat, predictable paths like planets orbiting a star. They exist as probability distributions, and when they interact with something, they briefly localize, appearing in a more defined position. But as soon as that interaction passes, they spread out again into a range of possibilities. It is a continuous cycle: definition, and then uncertainty, presence, and then diffusion. Not disappearance in the sense of being gone, but disappearance in the sense of no longer being precisely defined. And this connects to something even deeper within quantum physics known as quantum field theory. According to this view, what we think of as empty space is filled with fields, and these fields are always active. Tiny fluctuations within them can create pairs of particles that briefly come into existence and then vanish again. They borrow energy from the vacuum, exist for a fleeting moment, and then return it. This is not chaos. It is structure, a quiet, constant flickering that forms the foundation of everything. Even stable particles like the electrons in your body are part of this dynamic process. They are not static entities sitting in one place. They are continuously interacting with their environment, exchanging energy, shifting between states, momentarily appearing more defined and then returning to a softer, less certain existence. And yet, from this constant flickering, stability emerges. Your body does not dissolve. The world does not vanish. Because while individual particles behave in this fluid, ever-changing way, the patterns they form are incredibly consistent. The probabilities follow strict rules. The interactions repeat in predictable ways. And from that consistency, the illusion of permanence arises. It is like watching a flame. If you look at a candle, the flame appears steady, continuous, unchanging. But in reality, it is a process. New particles are constantly being excited, emitting light and then fading away. The flame is not a fixed object. It is a pattern that sustains itself through constant change. You are like that, not a fixed thing, but a stable pattern of ongoing events. Particles appearing, interacting, dissolving, and reappearing, all in such a consistent way that you experience yourself as continuous. And there is something deeply calming in this realization, because it means that existence is not something rigid that must be held together by force. It is something that naturally sustains itself through flow, through constant renewal, through patterns that do not require permanence at the smallest level in order to create stability at the larger scale. You do not need to be perfectly fixed to exist. You do not need to be unchanging to be real. Reality itself is built from this gentle, continuous unfolding. And even the idea of disappearing begins to change meaning. It is no longer about something being lost, but about something returning to a broader state of possibility, a softening of definition rather than an end. So as you rest here, you can begin to feel that differently, that beneath the steady surface of your body, beneath the sense of being one continuous self, there is a quiet rhythm, a subtle flickering, a constant renewal that has been happening your entire life without you ever needing to notice. You are not held together by stillness. You are held together by motion, by change, by patterns that persist even as their components shift. And as we move forward, we'll begin to explore something that connects all of this in a surprising way. Because if particles can appear and disappear, if they are not fixed in one place, then under the right conditions, they can do something even more unexpected. They can pass through barriers, as if those barriers were never truly there. Now, let everything we've explored begin to settle into a single quiet question. A question that has been gently following us from the very beginning. If particles can exist in multiple places at once, if they only become defined when observed, if they constantly appear and fade back into possibility, then why does the world feel so stable? Why does your body feel solid, consistent, continuous? Why does reality not flicker, shift, or dissolve before your eyes? The answer lies in something subtle, something that quietly shapes everything you experience without ever announcing itself. It is called decoherence. You don't need to think of it as something complicated. You can think of it as the reason the strange behavior of quantum physics becomes invisible at larger scales. It is what turns a world of possibilities into a world that feels certain. At the quantum level, particles exist in superposition, holding multiple states at once. But this state is incredibly delicate. The moment a particle interacts with its environment, with light, with air, with other particles, that superposition begins to break down. Not suddenly, but rapidly. The possibilities do not disappear completely, but they become entangled with so many surrounding interactions that they can no longer be observed as a single coherent system. The result is that the particle appears to settle into one definite state. And this process is happening everywhere, all the time. Your body is constantly interacting with its environment. Every second, countless particles within you are exchanging energy with the air, with photons of light, with the surfaces around you. These interactions happen so frequently, so densely, that any delicate quantum behavior is immediately stabilized into something that appears classical, something that feels fixed. This is why you do not experience yourself as a cloud of possibilities. This is why you feel like a single, defined being, because the interactions around you are continuously shaping those possibilities into a stable pattern. It's like looking at a spinning wheel. If it spins slowly, you can see each spoke clearly. But as it spins faster and faster, the spokes blur together into a solid circle. The motion is still there, the individual parts are still distinct, but your perception smooths them into something continuous. Decoherence works in a similar way. At the smallest scale, reality is fluid, uncertain, filled with overlapping possibilities. But as interactions increase, those possibilities blend into a stable experience. The uncertainty does not vanish, it becomes hidden within the complexity of the system. And so the world feels solid, not because it is fundamentally rigid, but because it is constantly being stabilized by interaction. This also explains why large objects do not behave like quantum particles. A single electron can exist in superposition because it is relatively isolated. But a human body, a chair, a planet, these are systems with trillions upon trillions of particles, all interacting with each other and with the environment. The sheer number of interactions forces stability. It locks the system into a consistent pattern. And yet, beneath that stability, the underlying rules remain unchanged. The same principles that allow a particle to exist in multiple states are still present within you. They are simply hidden beneath layers of interaction, woven into a pattern so complex that it appears fixed. You are not separate from quantum reality. You are its large-scale expression. And there is something quietly comforting in that, because it means that stability does not come from rigidity. comes from balance, from continuous interaction, from patterns that hold together not because they cannot change, but because they are constantly being renewed. Your body is not a static object that must resist change in order to exist. It is a dynamic system that maintains its form through constant exchange, constant adjustment, constant flow. And this brings us back to the deeper thread running through everything we've explored. Reality is not made of fixed things. It is made of processes. And those processes create the experience of solidity, of identity, of continuity. But they do not eliminate change. They allow it in a controlled, harmonious way. So as you rest here now, you can begin to feel that stability differently. Not as something rigid or unbreakable, but as something alive, something maintained through quiet balance. The world around you is not frozen in place. It is continuously unfolding, continuously stabilizing itself through countless interactions you never have to think about. And you are part of that unfolding. You are not held together by force. You are held together by flow. And as we move into the final part of this journey, we'll begin to explore what this all means on a larger scale. Because if reality is built on interaction, possibility, and connection, then the universe itself may be far more interconnected than it first appears. If you're still listening, gently comment 2, and we'll continue into the deeper connections that bind everything together. Now, as we move into the final part of this journey, everything begins to open outward. We've seen that reality is not solid, not still, not fixed. We've seen that it is built from interactions, from probabilities, from patterns that only appear stable because of constant balance. And now, with that foundation in place, something remarkable begins to emerge. Because if reality is not rigid, then the limits we imagine may not be as absolute as they seem. In the classical world, the world you are used to, barriers are clear. A wall stops you. A surface blocks you. If something is in the way, you must go around it or use energy to overcome it. This feels obvious, almost unquestionable. But at the quantum level, this certainty begins to soften. Particles do something unexpected. They pass through barriers, even when they do not have enough energy to go over them. This phenomenon is known as quantum tunneling, and it is one of the clearest examples of how reality allows for possibilities that feel impossible from our everyday perspective. Imagine a small particle approaching a barrier. Like a hill, it does not have enough energy to climb. In classical physics, the outcome is simple. It stops, turns back, cannot cross. But in quantum physics, the particle is not just a point. It is a wave of possibilities spread out across space. Part of that wave can extend through the barrier, and sometimes quietly, without effort, the particle is found on the other side. It did not climb the hill. It did not break the barrier. It simply appeared beyond it. This is not rare. It happens constantly. Inside stars, quantum tunneling allows particles to fuse together, creating the energy that lights up the universe. Without tunneling, the sun would not shine. The warmth you feel, the light that reaches your skin, all of it depends on this quiet defiance of classical limits. And it happens within you as well. In the tiny processes that keep your body alive, electrons move through barriers, enabling chemical reactions that would otherwise be impossible. Your very existence depends on this subtle ability of particles to go where they should not be able to go. And yet, despite how strange this sounds, it is not chaos. It is law. Quantum tunneling does not break the rules of the universe. It reveals that the rules are broader than we once imagined, that reality is not confined to rigid paths, but allows for a gentle flexibility, a softness at its edges. Barriers are not always absolute. They are probabilities. And this idea connects back to everything we've explored. If particles exist as waves of possibility, then their behavior is not limited to a single path. There is always a small chance, however subtle, that they can appear somewhere unexpected. Most of the time, these probabilities are extremely small. That's why you do not see large objects passing through walls. The chances are so tiny, so vanishingly small, that they effectively never happen at our scale. But at the level of particles, where probabilities govern everything, these events become part of the natural flow of reality. The impossible becomes possible. Not always, not easily, but consistently enough to shape the universe itself. And there is something quietly comforting in that, because it suggests that reality is not as rigid as it appears, that beneath the surface of certainty, there is always a layer of possibility, a space where outcomes are not completely fixed, where paths are not entirely closed. This does not mean that anything can happen at any time, but it does mean that the universe allows for more than one way forward. Even when something seems blocked, even when a barrier appears solid, at the deepest level it may not be absolute. There is always a probability, however small. And as you rest here, you can let that idea settle gently into your awareness. Not as something dramatic, not as something that demands action, but as a quiet shift in perspective. The world is not a system of hard edges and fixed limits. It is a system of soft boundaries, shaped by probabilities that allow for subtle movement, even where none seems possible. You are part of that system, not separate from it. The same rules that allow particles to pass through barriers are the ones that shape everything you are. You exist within a universe that is not rigid, but flexible, not fixed, but open, not limited to a single path, but filled with possibilities that unfold over time. And as we continue, we'll begin to explore something even more profound. Because if particles can cross barriers, then they can also become connected in ways that go beyond distance itself. A connection that does not depend on space. A connection that quietly links everything together. Now let your awareness expand gently outward again, beyond your body, beyond the space around you, into something even more subtle than movement, even more surprising than particles passing through barriers. Because if quantum physics has shown us anything so far, it is this: the universe is not as separated as it appears. Distance, in the way we understand it, may not be as absolute as we think. Because at the quantum level, particles can become connected in a way that seems to ignore space entirely. This phenomenon is known as entanglement, and it is one of the most quietly astonishing features of reality. When two particles interact in certain ways, they can become linked, not just temporarily but fundamentally. Their properties become connected so deeply that they are no longer independent systems. Instead, they form a single, unified state, even if they are later separated by vast distances. And here is where it becomes truly surprising. If you measure one of these particles, the other responds instantly, not after a delay, not after a signal travels between them, but immediately, as if distance does not matter. Imagine two particles drifting far apart, one here, one on the other side of the galaxy. If they are entangled, measuring one will instantly determine the state of the other. If one is found in a certain state, the other must align accordingly, no matter how far away it is. This is not a theory. It has been tested, observed, and confirmed many times. And yet, it challenges one of our deepest intuitions, that information cannot travel faster than light, that objects separated by space must act independently. Entanglement suggests something different. It suggests that, at a fundamental level, these particles are not truly separate. They are part of the same system. Distance, in this case, is not a dividing line. It is simply a feature of how the system appears from the outside. From within, the connection remains. Now, it's important to understand that this does not allow for communication in the way we might imagine. You cannot send messages through entanglement. You cannot control one particle to influence the other in a meaningful, usable way. The connection exists, but it does not carry information in a way that breaks the larger structure of physical law. And yet, the connection is real. It is consistent. It is unavoidable. And it reveals something profound about the nature of reality. That the universe is not built from isolated pieces. It is built from relationships, from systems that extend beyond what we can see, beyond what we can easily measure. And this brings us back to something we felt earlier, that reality is made of interactions, not things. Entanglement takes that idea even further. It shows us that some of those interactions do not end when distance begins. They persist. They stretch. They remain part of a shared structure. And this idea begins to shift how we think about connection itself. Because at the deepest level, separation may not be as complete as it seems. The particles that make up your body have interacted with countless other particles throughout the history of the universe. They have collided, exchanged energy, become briefly entangled, and then moved on. Most of these connections fade quickly through decoherence, dissolving into the complexity of the environment. But the fact remains. At a fundamental level, everything has been part of something else. Everything has been connected, and in subtle ways that connectedness never fully disappears. You are not made of isolated matter. You are made of particles that carry histories of interaction, traces of connection, echoes of relationships that extend far beyond your immediate experience. You are embedded in a network, a vast, intricate web of interactions that spans space and time. And while you may not feel these connections directly, they are part of the structure that allows reality to exist as it does. There is something deeply calming in that idea, because it suggests that you are not separate from the universe. You are not alone within it. You are part of its fabric, not metaphorically, but physically. The same laws that allow entangled particles to remain connected are the ones that shape the interactions within your body, within your environment, within everything you experience. You are not outside of that system. You are an expression of it. And as you rest here now, you can let that idea settle gently, not as something overwhelming, but as something quiet and reassuring, that beneath the appearance of separation, there is connection. Beneath the distance you perceive, there is unity at a deeper level. You are part of a universe that is not divided into isolated pieces, but woven together through relationships that extend far beyond what you can see. And as we continue, we'll begin to bring all of this together into something even more personal. Because if the universe is built on connection, on interaction, on shared states, then what you are is not just a collection of particles. You are a pattern of relationships, a process that exists through connection. Now let that idea gently settle, that everything is connected, that nothing truly exists in isolation, that even distance cannot fully separate what has once been linked. And from that quiet realization, something deeper begins to take shape. Because if reality is built on relationships, then what you are cannot simply be a single object. You are not just matter. You are a pattern of relationships. At first, it may still feel natural to think of yourself as a thing, a body, a structure, a defined presence moving through space. But as we've seen, that structure is not solid in the way it appears. It is not made of fixed pieces. It is made of interactions, of particles that are not truly stable, of probabilities that are constantly resolving, of forces that never quite touch. So what holds you together? Not solidity, not permanence, but pattern. A stable arrangement of relationships that persists over time, even as the components within it continuously change. Think of something simple like a wave in the ocean. If you look at a wave, it appears to move forward, to have a shape, a form, an identity. But the water itself is not traveling with the wave. The individual molecules rise and fall, moving through each other, while the pattern of the wave continues. The wave is not a thing. It is a process, a pattern sustained by motion. You are like that. The particles in your body are constantly changing. Atoms are exchanged with the environment. Molecules are broken down and rebuilt. Electrons shift, interact, and redistribute. And yet, through all of this, you remain you. Not because the same particles stay in place, but because the pattern of relationships remains stable. Your identity is not tied to specific particles. It is tied to the structure of their interactions. And this structure is incredibly dynamic. It is maintained through constant exchange, constant adjustment, constant flow. Every breath you take brings new particles into your body. Every moment, energy flows through you. Heat, light, chemical reactions, all contributing to the ongoing process that sustains your form. You are not a fixed object moving through a static world. You are a dynamic system, continuously interacting with everything around you. And this begins to dissolve another quiet assumption. The idea that there is a clear boundary between you and the rest of the universe. Because if you are defined by relationships, and those relationships extend beyond your body, then where do you truly end? The air you breathe becomes part of you. The light you absorb influences your internal processes. The environment shapes the patterns that define your existence. You are not separate from the world. You are continuous with it, a local expression of a much larger system. And this does not make you less distinct. It makes you more deeply connected, because your existence depends not on isolation, but on interaction. The same network of relationships that forms you is the one that forms everything else. You are a pattern within a larger pattern, a structure within a broader structure, all woven together through the same underlying rules. And there is something profoundly calming in that, because it means you do not have to hold yourself together by force. You do not have to be perfectly fixed or unchanging to exist. You are sustained by the same processes that sustain the universe itself. A quiet balance of interactions that continues without effort, without strain. You are not fragile in the way you might imagine. You are resilient because you are not static. You are flexible. You adapt. You flow. And even your thoughts, your feelings, your sense of identity, they are part of this pattern. Not fixed, not permanent, but evolving. Emerging from the interactions within your brain, shaped by experience, shifting over time. Nothing in you is completely rigid. Everything is part of a process. And this leads to a gentle shift in how you can see yourself. Not as something that must remain exactly the same, not as something that must resist change, but as something that naturally evolves. A pattern that holds together not by staying still, but by continuously adjusting, just like everything else in the universe. So as you rest here, you can let that idea soften your perspective. You are not a solid object that must carry weight through a rigid world. You are a flowing pattern within a flowing system, supported by interactions that you do not need to control. You are not separate. You are part of the fabric. And as we move into the final segment, we will gently bring all of this together into a quiet understanding of what it means to exist in a universe that is not fixed, not solid, but beautifully open and continuously unfolding. Now, as everything we've explored begins to settle into place, there is one final shift that quietly emerges. A shift not in the structure of the universe, but in how you relate to it. Because if reality is not solid, not fixed, not made of permanent things, then perhaps the way we hold on to it can soften as well. All this time, without realizing it, we tend to treat reality as something rigid, something that must behave in predictable ways, something that should stay consistent, stable, and clearly defined. And when it doesn't, when things feel uncertain, when life feels unclear, when outcomes are not yet decided, it can create tension, a sense that something is wrong. But quantum physics gently suggests something different. Uncertainty is not a flaw. It is the foundation. At the deepest level, reality does not begin with certainty. It begins with possibility, with a range of potential outcomes that only become defined through interaction. And even then, that definition is not permanent. continues to evolve moment by moment, shaped by ongoing relationships. So the world is not a fixed structure you must navigate. It is a process you are part of. And this change is something subtle but important. Because if reality itself is not rigid, then you do not need to demand rigidity from it. You do not need everything to be fully defined all at once. You do not need to resolve every uncertainty immediately. The universe itself does not rush. It allows space. It holds possibilities open until the moment they naturally unfold into form. And you can begin to move with that same rhythm. Instead of resisting uncertainty, you can begin to see it as a natural state. A space where multiple outcomes are still possible. A quiet openness where things have not yet been forced into a single path. This does not mean losing direction. It means allowing flexibility, because just like a particle in superposition, there are moments where your path is not yet fully defined, where multiple directions exist at once. And rather than forcing a decision too early, reality itself allows that state to exist briefly, gently, until interaction brings clarity. There is no rush at the fundamental level, only unfolding, and this can bring a quiet sense of ease, because the pressure to be fixed, to be certain, to have everything resolved, begins to soften. You are not required to be a finished, perfectly defined version of yourself at every moment. You are allowed to exist within possibility, to evolve, to shift, to gradually take shape through your interactions with the world. Just like everything else. And even the idea of control begins to change. Because when you see reality as a network of interactions rather than a rigid system, control becomes less about forcing outcomes and more about participating in processes. You are not standing outside reality trying to shape it. You are inside it, influencing it through your presence, your actions, your interactions. Gently, continuously, naturally. And this brings us back to something we've been circling around since the beginning. That the universe is not made of things, but of relationships. And you are one of those relationships, a living, breathing pattern of interaction, constantly unfolding, constantly reshaping itself. You are not separate from uncertainty. You are part of it. And that is not something to resist. It is something to rest into. So as you lie there now, you can let go just a little of the need for everything to be solid, to be fixed, to be fully understood. You can allow the world to be what it is, a flowing system of possibilities gradually resolving into experience. And you can allow yourself to be the same. Not a rigid structure, but a soft, evolving pattern within that system, held not by certainty, but by balance, not by permanence, but by continuity. And as we move into the final moments of this journey, we will gently slow everything down, bringing all of these ideas into a quiet, peaceful reflection, where the mystery remains, but the tension fades. Now, let everything gently slow. You've traveled through something vast, something subtle, something that quietly reshapes how reality is understood. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still resting, still present in this moment. Nothing has been taken away from your world. The bed beneath you is still there. The room still surrounds you. Your body still feels familiar, but perhaps something has softened, because now you know that beneath the feeling of solidity, there is space. Beneath the sense of stillness, there is motion. Beneath certainty, there is possibility. And beneath separation, there is connection. All of these truths exist quietly, all at once, without disturbing the surface of your experience. And there is something deeply peaceful in that, because it means the universe does not require tension to hold itself together. It does not depend on rigidity or force or permanence. It exists through balance, through relationships, through patterns that gently sustain themselves without needing to be fixed forever. And you are part of that, not separate from it, not observing from the outside, but woven into it completely. Every breath you take is an interaction. Every sensation you feel is a conversation between fields, between particles, between layers of reality that are always moving, always adjusting, always unfolding. You are not resting in a static world. You are resting within a living process. And that process does not need your effort to continue. Your heart beats without you thinking. Your body regulates itself. The atoms within you shift, interact, and stabilize in ways so precise, so reliable, that you never have to notice. The universe is not asking you to hold it together. It already knows how, and so you can let go. Just a little more. Let go of the need for everything to be certain. Let go of the need to understand every detail, to fix every unknown, to resolve every question. Because at the deepest level, reality itself is not built on complete certainty. It is built on unfolding, on the quiet movement from possibility into form, again and again, endlessly. And you are allowed to move with that, to exist without having everything defined, to rest within uncertainty, knowing that it is not emptiness, but openness, not absence, but potential. You are not required to be perfectly solid, perfectly stable, perfectly resolved. You are allowed to be fluid, allowed to change, allowed to simply exist as part of this vast, interconnected system that has been unfolding since the beginning of time. And as you lie there now, you can begin to feel that in a very gentle way. The weight you feel is supported, not by solid contact, but by invisible forces in perfect balance. The stillness you feel is not the absence of motion, but a harmony of countless tiny movements working together. The sense of being you is not a fixed structure, but a stable pattern emerging from something deeper. Everything is held without effort. Everything continues without strain. And slowly, as your thoughts begin to quiet, you can imagine yourself not as a separate object in a vast universe, but as part of the universe itself, experiencing itself in this moment. A temporary pattern of energy and space, aware, present, and gently resting within the flow of everything. There is nowhere else you need to be, nothing else you need to become, because even at the deepest level, you are already part of something complete. A universe that does not rush, that does not demand, that simply unfolds quietly, endlessly. And as that realization settles in, you can allow your awareness to drift, just a little further, letting go of the details, letting go of the structure, letting everything soften into a calm, open space, where thoughts become lighter, where the edges of things blur gently, where the need to hold on begins to fade, and all that remains is a quiet sense of being, a presence that does not need to define itself, a moment that does not need to last, just this, soft, and enough. If you're still here, gently let me know by commenting 3, and for now, just rest within the quiet mystery of it all.